Hello humans, and welcome back to another episode of RD2H Road to Happiness. This week is a very exciting episode because I have guest Emily Granat here to talk to us about astrology and dive into a little bit more of the self-healing process that we talk about here on this podcast. If you're new to RD2H, then welcome. And if you're not, welcome back. RD2H here, we stand for Finding Our Own Road to Happiness. We talk about a ton of different topics here on the show, including finance, philosophy, current events, and so much more, lifestyle, self-development. And the goal here is to get you on the right path to discovering your own road to happiness, as well as finding and paving a road to happiness on a wider scale as well. So welcome Emily Granat to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I am so excited. I can't wait to share how astrology changed my life, but also just kind of my journey on this healing journey. So I'm honored to be here. I'm so excited.
Of course. And how exactly did you get on your healing journey?
Wow. There's actually a few things. Now, for me personally, I felt like when I started, and this isn't going to be a typical answer. Most people would be like, oh, I started meditating, I started praying more. And those were things I did, but it was really my health journey that allowed me to really tap in with myself. So it was taking care of my body more so. Also, my dad, so we're going to get pretty deep right away, but my dad actually committed suicide when I was a sophomore in college. And when that happened, it opened my eyes so much that none of this is what we think it is.
So you had kind of that awakening moment when you hit that struggle.
Yeah, 100%. And I know that's so cliche. There's so many people who talk about, they had this big life-changing event happen to them. And I don't think that's necessarily how it has to be. But for me personally, that is what really opened me to start being more mindful of what was going on in my body.
That's interesting that you say that, because a lot of people actually say that they reach kind of a rock bottom, very saddening kind of point in their life that kind of causes them to see different perspectives and start to go down this healing and growth journey.
Yes, 100%. I remember after he passed, I started to really think, okay, what is the meaning of life? What is the purpose of life? And, most sophomores in college aren't thinking like that. Maybe some are, but I was thinking in that manner. And then I remember it kind of just brought me down this rabbit hole of reading literally every self-help book, every spiritual book. Then it got me to the point I was on different medications, and I was like, oh my gosh, I need to clean my body out. I need to get my mind clear. So I stopped taking all the medications I was on for different health things, and I don't recommend anyone doing this. I went cold turkey off of them. My body kind of broke out in a rash, and I was just so low and at such a strange point in my life that I was kind of almost ripped of all of the external things, and the only way could really be up. And that's when I just became more mindful and started focusing on mind, body, spirit healing.
Mm-hmm. One of the most interesting things that I have found on my journey is that, I went through very similar experiences where I hit that rock bottom, and I started diving into self-help books, and I started having realizations and ideas that I'd never had before, thinking, what's the meaning of life? I got in a point where, religion plays a big aspect in that as well. And I wanted to read every single book on religion, everything. I was I can puzzle it together, I can make it make sense. It was this big eye-opening era. But yeah, I feel almost everybody that I've talked to that kind of has the same mindset that we do says kind of the same things. And it's really cool to see that pattern of they all say oh, I went through this step and then that step, and it's parallel to what everybody else says that has this kind of mindset. So it's almost you have to go through those steps in order to have that kind of eye-opening moment.
100%. I call it an initiation. What do you
I
feel
love that.
Thank you. What do you feel got you to that point?
I was just really lost. I was in a sorority. I was diving into the party lifestyle. And I just had bad habits. I was failing school. I really wasn't healthy. I was in a really toxic relationship. I had bad people around me. And it just got to the point where everything kind of fell apart at the exact same time. Like, I lost all my friends. My ex broke up with me. I got a letter from the school saying if I didn't get my stuff together, then I would be kicked out of my university. And, you know, it was all just crashing down at the same time. I felt so helpless. I was in such a dark spot. And I was just like, this was never the plan. This was not like who I wanted to end up being. Like, I don't like the path that I'm going down right now. And I just like worked every day on being a better person. And that's kind of how RD2H came to be, because I was like having all of these realizations and nobody around me wanted to hear my spews because, you know, they weren't understanding what I was saying. So I started the podcast as an outlet to like kind of help me and others who were on the same journey as me. And it's just been kept going since.
I love that. I think everyone, especially people who are so in tune and want to better themselves, it's almost like, oh, I'm so sorry.
No worries.
It's almost like we need that outlet. We need that space to just share, because especially when you start going on that journey, it can feel like, have you ever had that feeling where it's almost like bubbling up inside of you? Like, you have so much inspiration and so much creativity and just so many thoughts, and you're having all these realizations, and you're like, I have no one to talk to about this. And you're just like, oh my gosh, I just need to talk to someone about this. I need to bounce. Am I going crazy?
Exactly. That's okay? Like why I started talking to myself, because it was like I couldn't talk to anybody around it. And it's funny how when you start to like change that mindset and get on a different energy, you lose everybody around you because like they're no longer compatible with you. But slowly, like you and some other friends I have trickled in, and I'm like, hold up. They're like talking the same way I'm talking. And it's like a great experience to have that, because you need like a phase by yourself first to really like take it all in and to like decompartmentalize everything. Mm-hmm. But then slowly like people with that same kind of mindset trickle in, and it's just like a really trippy but cool thing to see.
Yeah, I think as we get more aligned within ourselves, the more the people who are supposed to be on our path come in. I think the reason people go through that period alone, though, is so that they can realize that regardless of who's around you, you're good. You're whole within yourself. And you've literally proved that by doing this podcast on your own, sharing your ideas. You don't need me here. You have a whole complete thing on your own. But it's an extra addition when you start meeting those who are aligned with you.
Absolutely. It gets to a point where, like, you're filling your own cup up, but everybody else is just adding overflow to your cup. But, like, after that alone period, absolutely you realize, like, it doesn't matter who walks in or walks out. It doesn't matter what, like, circumstances I'm under. Like, I have me, and I know that that's enough. And I don't think I ever really understood that until I went through that alone period. I'd say before, I had, like, this mindset where I was like, yes, I'm independent. I don't need anybody. But, like, that was just, like my brain talking, but, like, subconsciously, I was still relying on people. And I was, like, talking the talk, but I was not walking the walk. And then after that alone period, it was, like, very clear, like, now you know that you don't need anybody. This is your path. And I think during that alone period, like, it gets so uncomfortable, but it's in the uncomfortable that we grow and we learn. And you have two choices. During that uncomfortable period, you're either going to go back to your old habits and, you know, try to use vices or whatever you used to use to kind of not have to deal with that silence and not have to face yourself, or you decide to walk that path. And it's an uncomfortable period, but like all phases, it eventually ends.
Yes, 100%. In all honesty, I believe that that's what separates people who ascend to who they're supposed to be and the people who stay stagnant in their lives is the willingness to be extremely uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. I'm sure your first podcast episode, you were like, this is so weird.
Yeah.
I'm just talking, you know what I mean?
And the editing difference. My first episode, it was, you're sitting there editing for hours. And, you know, the more that you do something, the better that you get at it. And, like, we're never experts at something the first time we try it. And I think that we put so much pressure on ourselves to, like, be good the very first time. And that kind of, like, you know, defers some people. But it isn't, like, until you decide that you're going to go through that uncomfortable period that you're going to, like, continue to grow. Now I can get through a whole episode without saying, like, every 2 seconds, but that's not how I started.
Yeah. No, for sure. That's true with everything.
Yeah, everything takes time. Good things take time.
100%.
So you're really into astrology. How did you get into astrology specifically?
So my initial business that I launched was a candle business, and it was supposed to be a line of spiritual candles, and I would go to these kind of trade shows and sell them. So I would put all these cases of candles that I handmade, and they were beautiful candles. It was just so much work, into my trunk, and I'd carry them all in, and I'd sell them on the weekend. So I worked full time all week. I would go to these shows on the weekend, and I was pulling a profit. I just was exhausted. And it also didn't feel aligned because there was no joy in it anymore, because it became so much work and it felt like the purpose of it had dwindled. So I remember I was at this psychic fair selling candles, and this woman had a table of books, and I went over to it. And I'd always kind of been into astrology, but I never took the initiative to study it as deeply as I have now, and obviously give other people readings. So I go over to her table, I'm looking at the books, and I see a book about the 8th house in astrology. And I pick it up and I look at it, and I was like, how much for this one? And she was like, it's free, you can take it.
Oh, that's a sign right there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Mind you, she was selling books. So she was obviously selling them, trying to make money just like everybody else, and she gave it to me. So I read that, and I became so fascinated with it, so I started to kind of incorporate more so the astrology vibe into my candles. So I had been interested in it a little bit before, but I never deeply studied it. This book was kind of the gateway into that. And then from there, I actually didn't charge for a reading for literally like 4 to 5 years, which is a whole nother.
So when did you start that? You were like 21?
Yeah. So I was about 21 when I was doing the candles, and then I've been studying ever since.
Wow, that's super cool. You started like early.
Yeah, I was just really fascinated, and it was just really recently that I started even charging for readings. I just would give them to friends, I'd give them to family, I'd post on my Instagram story, if anyone wants a free reading, DM me, and I would sit with people on Zoom for 45 minutes and not charge anything. I remember I'd be in my cubicle at my office job, and I'd be like looking at someone's chart at the next cubicle, and I'd be talking to them about their chart at my job. But yeah.
I think that's been something I've learned as well. Like when you're so interested in a topic that you don't have to force yourself to study it. You don't have to force yourself to like conform to this like idea in your head, but you just genuinely want the information. That's like a very key indicator that you're on the right path, because, same thing like with I go to a university, I used to like force myself to be an academic or push myself into certain boxes. And then I realized like the things that I talk about on this podcast are things that I actually enjoy researching. Like even if I was a millionaire tomorrow, I would still be researching these things. I genuinely enjoy them.
Yes, I think that's the most excellent filter for deciding if you actually want to do something, is if you didn't really get compensated for it. I know that we live on Earth. We need money to survive.
Yes.
But if it was just going to be a hobby, would you still do it? Would you still have that passion and that excitement? And oftentimes those are the things that end up making us the most money. Mm-hmm. And how I even started making money on this, it kind of fell into my lap. That wasn't really what I set out to do.
Yeah, I feel like the universe kind of supports you. Like, things just kind of fall into place when when you're on the right path. You can feel it because there's no forcing it. There's no like, that feeling of, I have to go today or I have to do this. Obviously, you still put work into it, and it gets, frustrating here and there. But genuinely, when you enjoy it, I feel like you get a little tag team from the universe, and it kind of like drops you little helps down the way.
Yeah, our joy is definitely the best indicator of where we're supposed to be. True joy, not egotistical joy or, too much self-satisfaction or ego again. It's that just inner peace feeling where you're just happy to be there. That's what I feel right now talking to you. It's like talking about this, and that's that inner peace, that joy, like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. And I actually think that when I when I did start to charge for readings, I had to take a step back for a minute and ground myself and center myself into why I even began doing this in the first place and the passion and the excitement for it, because I think that that's how a lot of people lose themselves in it, is they start only thinking about how much money they can make from it, as opposed to why was I so fascinated with this to begin with?
Yeah.
And how do I make sure I always stay in that energy?
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it's always still doing free readings. Even though I don't have to now, I still will pull up someone's birth chart anywhere I am.
Yeah, that's awesome. But yeah, like you said, I think that throughout this journey, like, I have progressed through, like, reality, like, actually seeing physical proof of my progression when I let go of the outcome. Like, before, when I started posting and I was just, like, refreshing how many likes did this get, it was, like, consuming me in a very negative way. And I was like, hold up, this isn't, like, why I started the podcast. And like you said, the difference between egotistical kind of success versus actual fulfillment, I think, like, I was saying this on another episode, we kind of tie money to the symbol of freedom and of fulfillment, and we're like, oh, once we're rich, I'll be happy, I'll be okay, I'll be this, I'll be that. But the money is just the symbol that society has put on it. Money's a tool to get to happiness, but you're not going to find that fulfillment whether you have a bunch in your bank account or not, if you're not on the right path, and if you're not actually doing what you love. The money's not going to bring that fulfillment. I think money, in the sense that we think about it, is like just the result of us chasing what we're actually supposed to do. And like we say, oh, I want to be successful, I want to be a millionaire, but what we actually mean is we want like peace, fulfillment, we want to be out of the rat race. But it's not exactly tied to money the way that we think it is.
Yes, it's so interesting you're saying this, because I've been battling with this thought a lot about, regardless of how much is in your bank account, if your mental state isn't good right now, if you had all that money, your mental state, perhaps temporarily, it would feel good.
Artificially. It would be like an instant hit of dopamine, and then you'd go back.
Exactly. But what I've really been thinking about is the importance of why we're really here, of fulfilling that purpose, helping others, having community and people we love around us. Because if you have all this money in the bank, but again, back to what you were saying, you're not doing what you love, you don't have people you love around you,
then what was the point in the first place?
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Money can just accentuate. Money doesn't really change anything besides earthly things.
Yeah, and whatever you do end up making a career of, and whatever is, supplementing that money for you, you still have maintenance on it. And I don't think people understand that either. Like, they're like, oh, well, your life is fine because you have all this money in the bank account. How did you get there? By continuously doing work. And in order to maintain that kind of wealth and continue it down the line, you have to be putting the work in. So if you're not doing something that you love to do, even once you have that money, you still have to sustain it. You still have to continue, doing that thing that you don't love to do, because it's going to go away if you're not continuously making it. So if you build a foundation that you love in the first place, then you have a long-lasting fulfillment rather than like something that's easily depleted, or like some instant gratification or instant serotonin that's going to leave you back at square one where you started.
I actually think one of the most dangerous things is getting money before you are centered within yourself. And that's why you see so many celebrities and public figures who get money, and then they think that once they get money, all of their happiness will come. And then when they get it and the happiness still isn't there, they become so depressed and miserable because they realize, oh my gosh, the thing that I thought was going to bring me this, I got it and it's still not here. How do I get it? Oh my gosh. So that's why you see so many people who obtain certain levels of success still have sometimes worse problems than people who have no money, because they got what they thought would fix it and they still aren't fixed.
Yeah, absolutely. And part of my journey here has been like, I feel like you said, they're looking for something else, and when they get the money it just doesn't fulfill that. And like I've kind of been letting go of that idea, and like of course I know that someday like my time will come, but when it does come I don't think that it's going to hold the same value as it would have, you know, maybe 2 years ago. If you told me I was sitting in a podcast studio and interviewing, it might have gone to my head. But now that I've gone through this journey, the further that I get along, it's like I can't move forward until I let go of that idea of putting like whether it be my career or my lifestyle or whatever on a pedestal, because there is no pedestal. It's like me versus me. And I think that like the further, like I said, I go, I have to let go of that. I have to like not be so superficial and into monetary things and status quo. Like the ego kind of needs to die. And I've been going through like that ego death where it doesn't matter how successful I get or where I get, I don't think that I'm going to change because it doesn't hold the same value it used to for me.
It's so interesting. There's some alignment happening. All of the topics that you're hitting on without even the notes, just a disclaimer, we didn't really talk much about what we were going to talk about besides a few notes, but I've been thinking about that so much lately of what do these items really mean and what value do they really hold? Because, of course, I love to go shopping. I love to buy myself nice things. But I've been thinking so much about how none of that really matters. And often the most peaceful people are the people that are just present and happy with their loved ones, fulfilling. Look at the richest people. A lot of them don't even have those items that we think we hold at such a high level. A lot of them don't even... The billionaires, they don't even buy stuff like that. That's not even what it's about anymore.
Yeah. So when it comes to astrology, do you think that it works as efficiently if you don't have the proper mindset going into it? Because obviously like, people can like, you know, say your tarot card readings or say like change your perspective or think this way or think that way. But do you think that if you're not walking into it with an open mindset, it's going to make any changes? Or do you think that like you have to be in a certain kind of mindset to really implement what astrology is saying into your life?
Yeah, so you have to 100% be in a growth mindset. I can tell you, you have all of this potential. You could be doing this. You'll be so excellent at this. But if you're not actually in the space mentally to put the work in to obtain the highest octaves of whatever placement I mentioned could be beneficial for your career or whatever the case may be, it's useless. It's meaningless. That's why, you know, in the beginning I mentioned that the gateway for me into astrology was more so getting my mental and my spirit right as opposed to just getting a reading, because I had gotten lots of readings before I really, never as much astrology, more tarot or oracle readings, but you know, before I started my journey I'd gotten lots of readings, but it's the place that it comes from that will determine how effective the reading is. For example, someone books a reading with me, they're not committed to their growth. They just are looking for someone to tell them everything's going to be okay. They're going to meet the love of their life. Yes, you're going to be successful. Yes, you're going to make money. Yes, you're going to get everything you wanted. That's what someone wants to hear. And then they take that information and they're like, well, all right, it's got to come.
Totally.
That will only come if you use the energies present to make it happen. And that just involves putting in work and getting your mindset right and getting yourself to a place where internally you're peaceful. And if none of that ever comes, you'll be just fine, because you know that what really matters is your spirit and your connection with God and your community and all of the things that are the core of why we're here, right? And then magically, all of that stuff ends up coming because you're so centered in yourself and you're so aligned with who you are that you simply attract what's always been meant for you anyways. But if you come into the reading just looking for someone to tell you everything's going to be okay, everything is going to be okay. It'll be fine. But you do need to put work in.
Yeah, I love the way that you explain that, because I'm a big believer that it like starts with you, like inherently. You have to like start to work on your mentality and yourself, like, and start to like piece together your mind, because our reality is just like a perception of how we see the world. And when you start to change your perception and you start to like switch your mindset, all of a sudden your reality changes to reflect that new version of yourself. And you'll find yourself in different rooms and around different people, but it's not until you actually like do the introspection inside. Because when you think about it, there's like 1 million people on this planet. We're all living different lives. Like in this exact second, there are millions of different versions of today happening. And I feel like, you know, these are just little avatars. So when you decide to like switch your mindset, you end up in like a different kind of energy plane where you can change your reality by starting with yourself. But like everything starts with your mind. Like you are in control of everything that's happening around you. And when you control what you are capable of controlling, the rest kind of figures itself out. It works out the way it's supposed to.
Yeah, when I agree 100%, when you get to a certain frequency, you're not even thinking, how do I get this? How do I meet this person? It comes to you. And that, even with how aligned this ended up being for you and I to meet today, we both just are on frequencies that aligned with one another. So we were able to make it happen. That's it. We both just were at an elevated enough frequency. We were able to come together. And that's why I mentioned even health in the beginning of this too. I know I'm not a health specialist, but if you really want to kickstart your spiritual journey, taking care of your health raises mental, physical, spiritual health, raises your frequency to the point where you're able to attract those opportunities, and it's not so hard. If you're constantly working at something and you feel like you're not making any progress and every step of the way feels super hard, God is giving you the sign to go inward. Mm-hmm. God's giving you the green light to stop focusing so much on, if I just reach out to another person, if I just do this, if I just do that, and just what is going on internally?
Yeah.
How can I calm it down and bring peace to it?
Now, to put some context on how perfect this aligned, Emily's from New York, and I don't even have a lot of Instagram followers for RD2H, but she just happened to be following me a few months back, and she had a thought of something that I posted on my story. She was thinking about it all day. Do you remember what it was?
I feel like we mentioned it earlier too, but the thought lost my...
No worries. But yeah, she had a thought, and I happened to post the same quote on my Instagram story later that day, and she thought, I feel inclined to DM her. Emily DM'd me, and I was like, where do you live? She lived in New York. I live in Orlando, Florida. I was like, well, that's never going to work. How are we going to get together for a podcast episode in 2 different states? And I happened to have a podcast room booked for today, and she happened to be in Orlando on a family trip today. So, I would have never expected to have my first guest on the show so soon, but it lined up so perfectly. And, we FaceTime, we had conversations, the vibe just flowed. And, it just lined up. And sometimes things just line up for you like that when you're on the right track and when you're doing the right things.
Yes, when you put the work in, God gives you that hand and is like, okay, come on, I'm gonna pull you a little bit further along. I'm gonna put you at that next level.
Yeah, I think that you just have to have the faith to take that first step. I think that's what, is the requirement, the initiation, as you say,
yes.
To have the faith and trust in the universe that, I'm just going to throw myself off the deep end with no idea whether this is going to work. And once you really spiritually take that jump, then it catches you and everything kind of works out. But it's that initial, are you going to jump? Are you going to do it? And that fear. And then as soon as you do jump, it works out and it's fine.
Yes. And the higher levels of success come from, again, taking that first jump, as you were saying, and then continuing to gain more confidence and up-level your frequency to the point where you just align. It's so interesting also that we're having this conversation this morning when I was taking a look at your chart, and this thought just came to me as I was taking a look at your chart. I said, we're only given as much as our energy can hold and maintain. If your nervous system isn't regulated, you're not going to be able to receive and hold the blessings God has for you.
I love that.
That was the thought that came to me, because I read very intuitively as well. So sometimes when I'm reading someone's chart, the placement doesn't always say those specific things, but a message like that will just come through.
Yeah, backward to that point and a point you made earlier, if your regulatory system isn't in balance and you don't feel that like harmony and that peace and that, okay, I think that I'm on the right track, it just feels right, that's a big indicator that, you know, maybe you need to pivot, maybe you need to do something, because we're not supposed to be stressed all the time. Our regulatory systems aren't supposed to be all over the place. When you do find that alignment, you know, like you said, God helps when you have that peace, that balance, when it's like working internally for you.
Yes, for so long I thought that I struggled a lot with anxiety, and I'm not going to act like I don't get minor anxiety doing things I enjoy as well, but I thought that I was a very anxious person because of how I felt around certain people or at certain jobs. And then I found that, you know, I'm not anxious right now, but I'm doing something that could be perceived as being scary, but I'm on the right path. So that anxiety and that fear kind of washes away once you're in alignment and you're doing the thing you're supposed to be doing.
Totally. And like, you know, normally when someone DMs me, I get anxious. I'm like, this is a fake person, like bots, like, you know how the internet be. But when you DM me, I just was like, yep, that sounds good. And that's not like normal for me. Like usually I'm like, no, it's sketchy. Like I have a very big intuition. But when you DM me, it was just like, I need to book this podcast studio. It just felt right. And I think that following your intuition and your gut has helped me a lot, because there's been a few times where I've not followed my gut, and every single time it ends me in a bad place. And it's just like, you know, you can sense when things are aligned for you, when you're like, oh, this, like, whether it be a trip or a career or like an event, sometimes you're just sitting there and you're like, no, it lined up almost too perfect. Like I'm supposed to be right where I am right now.
Yes, and I also believe that that's the flow state as humans we're supposed to be in all the time. I think that the reason life can be so hard sometimes is because we just go against, back to what you're saying, we go against what our gut, what our intuition is saying, and then we wonder why things are so difficult when we're supposed to be in that flow state where everything seemingly works out. You're on time, you're feeling good, you're feeling at ease, you're feeling at peace, you meet the right people, the right opportunities present themselves. You just happen to be at the right place at the right time. That's how we're meant to live.
Yeah, and we try to be like practical, but I don't think that always works out for us. Like I said it earlier too, I was like, you know, just because something is tradition, or just because something is societal like norms, or that the majority of people agree with it, does not make it right. Like you need to do that work on yourself and really think for yourself. Yes. Decide what is okay in my world and in my reality, and how do I perceive this. But when you're following what the crowd tells you to do, or what, you know, your parents tell you to do, or what you think will end up, you know, the most practical decision to get the most security, oftentimes that leads us actually towards the opposite of what we want to do. It leads us towards the opposite goals, and we end up having that crashing moment, because I found that whenever you're in the wrong place, no matter how much you try to push it, whether it be that career or that relationship or that friendship, eventually you can only do so much and it'll just collapse. And you'll be like, I worked so hard, I did so much, why is everything falling apart around me? But it's in that moment that you realize it was never for you in the first place. You were trying to force something that was never meant for you.
100%. And there's always so many indicators when something isn't for us, and it's only the ignoring that gets us to the tower moment where it all comes crashing down. That's another reason why I love people's birth charts and astrology so much as well, is because we're given a blueprint of what we're supposed to do in life, right? There's this standard blueprint for how we should live our lives, how we should behave, what we should do for work, what's acceptable, what's not acceptable. It's a blueprint by society, and then a blueprint from our parents, a blueprint from friends. We put all these different blueprints from other people, and then we think that's how we're supposed to be living. Whereas your birth chart, it's your unique energy codes. It's your blueprint to how you should be living. I don't even love the word should either. It's your personal blueprint to the best version of your life. That's it. That it explains to you the highest octave of how you can be living.
I love the way that you said, like, we look to other people about blueprints, because I think that, you know, it's scary to have so many different paths and things to take. Your life could go anywhere. I mean, like I said, this is just like Avatar, and you know, you could do anything. There's no difference between me and you besides what we decide to do with our day-to-day lives. And too many of us, and I was guilty of this before as well, you know, it gets so overwhelming trying to figure out what you want to do with your life and where you're going to end up, and you start to look towards other people and you're like, somebody else has to have the answers. Somebody else has to have the answers. And whether that's your parents or politicians or society in general or the school, we try to find the answers from other people, but nobody else has the answer to your story besides you. And that can be a really scary thing because it's like nobody's coming to save you. But at the same time, nobody's coming to save you. It's your story. You can write it and figure it out along by yourself, and nobody else can tell you it's wrong because it's your job to figure out what aligns with you. Nobody else has your answers but you do.
Yes. Yeah, 100%. I think that so many people find comfort in someone else telling them that will be good for you. And that just gets us so far off our path. Again, when you take full ownership and you say, I know what's best for me, even if it means telling the people that you love the most, no, I'm not going to do this. No, I don't think that's best. No shade to my family at all. But back in, I think, when I first started studying astrology, I wanted to take this course that was probably, I think it was $5,000 to invest in this course for astrology because I had read a bunch of books and I thought I need to learn from a mentor. I asked my family about it and they told me, you know, you're more than an astrologer. You don't just want to do that. $5,000, that's a lot of money. That's so much to invest in that. That's all you want to do is look at people's birth charts? And I'm like, I love it though. But I asked them and I didn't end up taking the course because it deterred me. Even though I knew it was, I've taken several courses since then. That's okay. I redeemed myself. But at that point, I was so dependent on someone else's blueprint for me.
Mm-hmm. And I think, like, with that, oftentimes, you know, we start to kind of inch our way towards, like, what actually interests us. And then we ask people like that, and you're like, oh, maybe I'm wrong. But, you know, your family aren't astrologers. So it's like you're asking people that aren't on the same path as you, people that have never walked the walk that you are currently going down. And so, like, obviously they're not going to understand where you're coming from because you're the first person to lay this path. So, like, if you're asking other people, then you're going to get those skewed opinions because you can't take opinions from anybody who isn't where you want to be. I'm sure if you asked somebody who was, like, already successful in that area, they would say, go for it, do this, do that, I can help you here and there. But when you ask somebody who has never walked the walk, they're going to approach it with a little bit of fear, a little bit of be rational, take less risks, don't jump. But, you know, that doesn't really get us anywhere.
Yeah, I think the best thing, and I feel like you'll agree with this, but the best thing is just taking that jump, taking that leap into, even if it's a small thing that sets you on the path towards what you want to do. When I give someone a reading, I always try to, I never give people drastic advice. I just gave someone a recorded reading, and she works in a corporate job, and she is more interested in an artistic field. And she was so anxious about, you know, being on this artistic path. And sometimes it just looks like taking a pottery class. So you still keep your job, but you're taking a class, or you're reading a book, or you're doing something that's in the realm of where you want to go. And that's what unlocks new opportunities and new adventures. I've been manifesting being on a podcast for a while. I love to chat with people. And so I've been manifesting that. And, you know, something that I've been doing lately is just recording myself. I make content, but I've been making kind of voice notes of how I would say things to manifest. And I know that seems like a little weird.
No, it works. You're on a podcast right now.
So taking those little steps.
Yeah, I think that, you know, you don't have to go so drastic. You don't have to, like, quit your day job and throw all your savings account into something. But like you said, like, little by little, maybe reading that book that is in the topic that you want and just, like, taking the time to put that for yourself. And then you upgrade, like, slowly by surely. Like I said, I started with my phone just talking into an app, and I just kept going little by little, and it started to upgrade, and now we're here talking. I'm talking with you at this whole studio. So it's like, you know, you don't have to jump off the deep end, but if you were just investing a little bit of time day by day, it compounds like interest. Like, you don't know where that could lead you down the road.
Yeah, I think, too, everyone gets so obsessed with the destination that they forget the joys in the journey. And if you're not joyous on the way to the destination, you won't be joyous when you get there. This is such a basic book, and I feel like most people have read it, but it's just The Alchemist. A lot of people have read that book, especially in the spiritual community, but it's just a book about enjoying the journey, that the destination will never be the end-all, be-all. It'll simply be another part of the journey, because there's really not a destination until we're gone.
Mm-hmm.
So enjoying that process, where it goes back to what you were saying about, it doesn't have to be, you know, taking your savings account, putting it all in something. You can still maintain your current life while investing into the life you want as well.
Yeah.
And enjoying the process. And then when you get there, it'll all fall into place.
Yeah, going on that, there's a quote that I read a while back, and I love to say it because it relates very much to that. It says, the man who enjoys walking will get a lot further than the one who is only walking to get to the destination. If you enjoy the process and you really accept it, you're going to go a lot further than the other person, the competitor who just wants the, you know, success or the status. Like, when you enjoy something, you go way further with it than you would with something that you do not enjoy.
Yeah, and I think the journey is so beautiful, because even you being able to say, I came from recording on an app into my phone to sitting in this studio. Not that it wouldn't be cool if you just were able to get this studio right away, but think about how you're able to see the progression of you.
Yeah, it wouldn't be as cool or as rewarding.
Yeah.
Because, like, I've seen this journey, I've seen this growth, and it's like, you know, even though day by day it's such little progress on, like, just a single day basis, when, like I said, success compounds. And so when I'm doing those little steps day by day, a year or two pass, and I look back and I'm like, wow, we've made strides in these last couple of years. And even though sometimes it doesn't feel that way, you know, like you said, it wouldn't be as rewarding if I was just handed all of this on a silver platter. I wouldn't feel like I deserved it. I wouldn't feel like, you know, it wouldn't be something that is like, wow, I did that. I actually, like, put in the work. I've gone through the trials and tribulations, and now today I can, like, proudly say we're here. And without those trials and tribulations, there just wouldn't be any satisfaction to it.
And 100%, it even goes back to that, what I thought of when I was looking at your birth chart of, we're only given what our energy can hold. So oftentimes, the thing that we seek the most, we just need to adjust our energy to be able to be at that level, to hold it. Perhaps when you started, your energy just wouldn't have been able to hold this. It just would have been too much. You would have felt underprepared,
Even today, I feel like if this podcast was as big as I dream of it being, and I already had everything I want, the person I am today, and I'm self-aware enough to admit, the person I am today is not the person that's capable of maintaining my wildest dreams. It's not the person that's capable of keeping up with a wildly successful podcast or being successful in the finance industry or doing all the things I want to do. There's no doubt in my mind that one day I will get there, but that's going to take growth and take me continuing to evolve and continuing to walk down this journey. In the same way that the person I was 2 years ago wouldn't be able to handle what I'm doing right now. It's like you're given them enough of, like, what you can handle at the moment, and as you continue to build up your future person, that's the person capable of having everything else.
Yeah, I would make sure you're getting ready for that success, though, because I'm telling you it's coming. You're an excellent interviewer.
Thank you. All right, so we are going to switch gears a little bit. Emily here, like I said, is an astrology expert, and she's going to go ahead and read my birth chart because she had that all planned out for today's episode.
Okay, so first thing I noticed, you have a bunch of 10th house placements. Now, 10th house is our career, it's our legacy, it's drive, it's Capricorn's house. So if you know anything about Capricorn, it's literally like, I'm going to get this done no matter what. You have a stellium there, meaning 3 or more planets are sitting all in that house, giving you a concentration on that probably since you were young. Do you feel like that's true?
A concentration, what do you mean by that?
On your career, on the legacy.
Oh, yes.
Just
there are
this
videos
drive.
of me when I was like 10 years old, and I'm like, this is how I'm going to dress when I'm rich and successful. like videos from like way back. Yeah.
That is so 10th house. I see so many successful, a business coach that I know, so many successful women have a ton of 10th house placements. So immediately you have the drive to get you to where you want to go. Another thing that I noticed, you have your north node, which is really, you have your north node sitting in the 10th house of career and legacy. Now, our north node is the direction our soul came to move. It's the energy we want to move towards. It's something that can feel a little bit uncomfortable, but we know that we're here to do it, but there's something in us that's like, ooh. And yours being in Gemini in the 10th house says that you have a huge potential for public speaking, for especially too, Mercury, your communication is sitting right there as well. So public speaking, podcasts, social media, everything you're doing and want to do, huge potential for that. And then you have your Saturn sitting there as well. So Saturn is discipline and lessons. So sometimes that Saturn energy, you have Saturn sitting really close to your sun, it can feel hard for you to have fun. Do you feel like it's hard for you to just let loose sometimes?
You know, I used to like be this party maniac, good time. Like if you wanted to have a good time, I could show it to you. I was running from bar to bar, going to festivals, and you know, I thought that I was like living my best life, but then after I had like that kind of a awakening moment, that tower moment, I realized like it was all a distraction, like, you know. And since then, since I've been on this journey, since I've kind of like shifted gears and, you know, woken up and decided maybe that's not what I want to do, now I do have a hard time letting go. I have a really hard time, you know, putting down all of my work and just going out with friends or having a good time. And it's almost like I'm a Gemini, so I got 2 people living up in here for sure. But it's like one, my old Gemini, like the one that loves to party, have a good time, is like always open to whatever adventure is next. She kind of like had to go in the back seat, and the other one took driver's seat. And now that the new one's in driver's seat, I have that issue. I'm just like, you know, it doesn't feel right anymore to like do the same thing that old me used to do.
That makes sense. So that's, to me, that sounds like the invitation to ensure that you're still enjoying the process of getting where you want to go, because Saturn has the tendency to put that pressure on us and make us feel like we aren't where we're supposed to be. We aren't as far along as we should be. We don't have as much money as we should have. It puts that pressure on us, and it actually makes it sometimes harder to get to where we want to go. Where the positive aspect of it is you have discipline. So knowing when to exert that discipline and knowing when to just let loose. For this placement, I would say almost scheduling your fun. Making sure you put blocks of, I'm not using my phone. I'm not gonna check my social media. I'm just going to be present on this day of relaxation.
Yeah, I totally feel that because, you know, I do get like that, like, oh, I'm not where I'm supposed to be. I don't have enough money. Like, I could be way further. This wasn't the plan. And I do put a lot of pressure on myself like that. And like you said, something that I've been working on lately and has been something that I've been thinking about is that I'm going to get further when I take that pressure off. And, you know, every emotion that we have serves as kind of like an angel and a devil on our shoulders. Mm-hmm. And like for that one, yeah, I do feel that pressure. I feel that like constant, you haven't graduated, you haven't done this, like, how are you ever going to make it? And it's like, you have to go, go, go. But at the same time, like you said, it also is the characteristic in me that provides me with the drive, with the discipline, with the ability to say, let's lock in and get things done. So it is like a little bit of a blessing and a curse, but, you know, like you do with astrology, knowing like yourself and reading your charts and understanding that gives me the ability to like love the parts of that I need to love, and like kind of have awareness to control the other parts. Like you said, maybe I need to put a schedule on so that I can enjoy those fun times, but still love the discipline it gives me. There's like, if you know what your human behaviors are and why you're acting the way you're acting, you can like control it to your benefit. And I can use it for the discipline side and kind of like be self-aware and be like, maybe we need to put the phone down for other times.
Yes, 100%. I think that would serve you very well, because you want to make sure you're still allowing that fun. You also have it at 17 degrees, which is a millionaire's degree. In Saturn, Jupiter is often seen as, you know, luck, expansion, abundance, but Saturn brings that, but it's sustainable. And you have it at 17 degrees, which is a millionaire's degree. It's a Leo degree, and it's sitting in your 10th house of career. So I really genuinely do see you being very big in the speaking arena, the interviewing arena, because Gemini just has that charm about them, and it's sitting in literally your house of legacy. So that's what people are going to remember you for, is your excellent interviews, your ability to communicate information in a unique way. That's what people are going to remember you for. Your mind, how intelligent you are, how exciting you're able to explain something.
You know, it's eerie that you say that, because you're not the first like astrologer to say that to me. And I told you off camera, but I've had readings done. I've had like, you know, people look at my charts, and it's so weird that everybody's saying the same thing. It's like everybody like gives me the exact same kind of message. And, you know, believe it whether you want or not, but like, what are the chances of that? What are the chances of like multiple astrologers and people who do this kind of research who don't know each other telling me the exact same thing? It's like insane to me.
Yeah, your soul, it's such concentrated energy. So I see charts like this not super often. A lot of times everyone's energy is moved throughout the chart. So there's a couple placements in this house, there's a couple placements in that house, but you have such heavy energy in your 10th house of career and legacy, and then your 11th house, which rules social media and your ability to draw a crowd. So you have another stellium in your 11th house, which tells me you're able to draw the crowd to you. You're able to cause a scene in a good way that makes people want to look. What is she talking about? Able to build community around that as well. I do see, and it's in Cancer, so there's almost this energy of being the mother of your community, being that person that's guiding the way and showing people the way, kind of like the blueprint to this venture.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I go for here at RD2H. When I was having all those realizations, it was just like, it took me so long to get here. I can help other people get here a little bit sooner. And like you said, like there are too many people out there that, you know, growing up isn't about age. It's not about how many years you've been on Earth. It's about like how many lessons you've learned. And I'm a big believer that you just continue to go through the same cycle over and over again and see the same kind of lesson until you decide to learn from it. And until you learn from it, you'll see the same people, different fonts. You'll run into the exact same kind of people. They're just in different bodies. And you'll go through the same events until you learn from those lessons. And the idea was, I took a while, but I got there, and maybe I can help other people get there a little faster than I did.
Yeah, that's another reason why astrology is so beautiful, is because it allows you to recognize your patterns in different areas of your life. The highest octave of the pattern and the lowest octave of it. Especially, a lot of people always want to know about relationships, right? In your relationships, I can see that there's a tendency to almost be a little bit dreamy, a little bit of codependency, and wearing rose-colored glasses.
Guilty as charged.
Ignoring the red flags, not seeing things for what they actually are, being too caught up in the fairy tale of it all. So what I would tell someone, I mean, I am reading your chart, but the advice I would give to a client would be lean more towards, of course, your feelings are always going to play a factor in romantic relationships, but making sure you're leaning towards what the person is actually saying versus what the person's actually doing as opposed to what they're saying. So not getting caught up in that dream world that they're painting of, I'm going to do this for you. I'm going to take you on a trip. I'm going to buy you this. I'm going to do this for you. We're going to have a house and we're going to have kids and we're going to get married. What are they doing? Did they do any of that yet?
Yeah, I'm totally guilty of that. Like, I get in those rose-colored glasses, and I'm just like, oh, in my own la la land, creating, like, a storyline until, like, they do something that wakes me up, and then I just, move on completely. But I've been avoiding relationships like no other because of that reason. I know myself well enough to know that, like, I'm an all-in or all-out kind of person. And, with the way that relationships happen in this generation and in society, it's not always all in or all out. Like, there is that middle ground, and I'm just really not good at that middle ground because I'm so passionate about everything in my life.
Yes, I completely agree. I'm not a middle ground person. The situationship era has given me too much anxiety. I don't agree with it. Personally, situationships, in my mind, I'm like, what is that? You want all the benefits of a relationship, but you don't actually want to commit.
Yeah, and I think it's a little bit of an immature mentality that puts that out there. Like, once you do, get to the point where you're like, okay, all I need is me, you're not going to deal with somebody being half in and half out because you don't need them. It is when you're in that codependent kind of state of mind where you're like, well, at least I have somebody that kind of fuels situationships. Once you're like, come in or come out, I really don't care, situationships just don't seem that appealing anymore.
Yeah, 100%. I also see that you have the potential to meet a partner through something work-related or routine-related. So at the gym, even a podcast guest, at another job, something that's in more of your routine, not meeting them on, I wouldn't say like a dating app or online. I would say it's going to be like you're running errands and someone comes up to you and asks you for your number. You're at the gym, someone comes up to you and asks you for your number. You have a guest and you're like, wow, really want to, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That type of thing. I do see a partner coming through something like that. Your moon is in Pisces. So for Pisces moon, super strong intuition. And it's also in your 7th house, which is asking you to use your intuition in relationships. Your gut always knows. And I'm sure you can attest that anytime someone or something has been off, especially in partnerships or even business, even in this is beneficial because it's your ability to use your intuition when signing legal documents too. So for things regarding business, your intuition is like, yes, full yes. You're like 100%. There's no doubt in it. Like you said with the podcast thing, or the energy of, I'm not sure. I don't know about that. That is a no immediately.
Yeah, that's good to hear though, because I definitely now that I am on this journey and I've figured out what I love to do and I've been diving into it, I don't really want people in my life who aren't kind of with the same mindset and thinking the same way and doing what they love to do. You don't need to be super successful, but I'd like you to have goals and be working towards that. So I think most people, if you do meet your partner organically through your hobbies or places that you frequent, it's going to align better. And it could be whenever you're ready. I mean, it sounds so cliche to say it'll happen when it's supposed to happen. And people who are single hate to hear that. But I mean, it's true. When you're in the right, you just end up being in the right place in the right time. And it's just they fell out of the thin air and it just works out perfectly. And when you kind of force it, whether it be the dating apps or situationships, and you're clinging on to a person, very often, it just doesn't align with who you are and what you want to do. And then you have to sacrifice parts of yourself, whether that be your hobbies or your interest or your career goals. If you have to sacrifice a part of yourself, there's a more than likely chance that it's not meant for you.
Yes, we're supposed to be complete and whole. We're not supposed to be hiding certain parts of ourselves. And that brings me to my next, something I'm seeing on your chart. There's some past life energy of like fear of being seen, fear of expressing yourself, fear of speaking up for what you really want and expressing, hey, I want to do this in this way, and that's not okay with me. And also being in the spotlight. So there is some fear around that. Do you feel like that holds true for you in this life?
Maybe a little bit. I mean, as I go down this light, I'm like, there is a little bit of fear of being like super successful, being in the spotlight, especially in this generation where people get canceled so easily. And like you say one thing wrong and everything good you said is now like invalid. And you could be doing everything right and trying to follow, your path or like help other people. And one slip up, especially in the media with everybody watching and the cameras on, and all your work is gone. So I feel like there is a little bit of that fear of like, what if I say the wrong thing? And what if just like that one person who wants to like put me on blast ruins this entire career that I'm trying to build for myself? And I think that that's been more prevalent in recent years more than ever.
Definitely. I see every time I go on TikTok, I see someone new being canceled for something they said or did even years ago. And I'm not saying I think what they said or did is right, but it is so easy, especially when you start to gain a certain level of success, for someone just to dig up something you said years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And
it's like they want to find the bad. They're like, oh, well, this person has made it. Why shouldn't they be there? Like they try to find a reason why you don't deserve what you have, even if you've worked towards it. And I think that's a fear of mine for sure, is like getting down the line, putting myself out there, and then trying to present myself with like this pure heart and this like authenticity, and having that like shoved in my face or twisted or taken out of context, like definitely a fear.
Yes, that makes a lot of sense. I also see your midheaven, which is a career point. It's in the sign of Taurus, and it's actually at 29 degrees. You have a lot of like millionaire degrees in your chart. And
That's
Taurus,
good to hear.
Yeah, Taurus is also the sign that represents money. So your career point being in Taurus, Taurus is all about creation. It's bringing your ideas and thoughts and bringing it into the physical world. And it's ruled by Venus, so it's in an aesthetic way. It's in having an eye for what looks good and what people want to hear. And ironically, Taurus rules the throat. Taurus rules the voice. So again, speaking out on things. So to summarize it, all of your energies in regards to career and what your soul came here to do fall back into speaking your truth, sharing your thoughts and ideas, building community around that, and using your unique creativity to bring that to life.
I love that you said that, because that resonated with me so much, because when I was younger, both of my siblings are very academically inclined, and I was always compared to my siblings. I was a very C student growing up. I did get into college, but that's only because my parents made it very clear that there was no option but to get into college. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't like a smooth transition, my academic career. It was very much like me forcing myself to be somebody that I wasn't, and to, get these scores, and to put so much pressure on me. It was like the world was on my shoulders. I get to talk on the podcast, and then I get to use all of that forcing myself to be an academic so that I could get into college and I could graduate. It also benefited me because I found subjects I do like I do love finance, I do love psychology, I do love philosophy, and so now I get to take all of everything that I learned, the aesthetics, the academics, and everything, and bundle it into a ball on this podcast. And it was just I had all the tools that I needed. I wasn't lacking anything. I just didn't see the bigger picture. I didn't see how the parts fit into the puzzle, but I always had the pieces.
Yeah, think about how magical it would be if parents nurtured, how you were saying you always were compared more academically. If parents nurtured what their children's strengths actually were, as opposed to, that goes back to what we were talking about earlier with the blueprints of there's this blueprint of doing well academically, math, science, things like that. That's not what everybody's necessarily good at.
Mm-hmm.
There's all these creative gifts that you have that are going to take you much further than that. And imagine if your parents got your birth chart read when you were a kid and they were like, wow, she's so creative and she's going to build this community surrounding it and she's supposed to be talking to people. Did you get in trouble for talking a lot in school?
Oh, for sure. They would move my desk to the other side of the room.
Okay, Gemini. Yeah. That's a key point. And it's your gift, it's your talent, it's what you're excellent at, but it's because of the blueprints of society, it's seen as something, oh, she's talking a lot.
Yeah.
When really it's your greatest gift.
Yeah. And I think that a lot of us do have everything that we need. We just don't realize it. We're like, oh, we push that aside. We push, like, it's not that important. I'm not going to, like, dive into it. But when you do dive into your interest, it's really cool to see, like, you could have, like, 3 or 4 interests in completely different fields. Like, they have nothing to do with each other. And the further that you, like, do this self-discovery, they kind of like just bundle up. Like you'll find a way to link everything that you love to do if you feel like you're doing what you need to do. You know what I mean? Like it just lines up. Everything like ends up with a bow at the end, and it's just cool to see.
Yeah, it's so interesting how little side quests, I call them, of doing random jobs will end up being so beneficial for your higher purpose. So I have a ton of experience in marketing, and for what I want to do, I need to know how to do that. So although I don't see myself marketing for other businesses forever, it's like that experience.
It adds to a layer to what you want to do.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's really cool. I love like just the idea of you never know where you're going to end up. Like you said, those side quests, like you don't realize until a year or even like 2 years after, and you look back and you're like, wow, it was like random that I went to this event that day, but had I not gone to that event, nothing would be the same. And it really is just like maybe one interaction with the right person that could change like the entire path that you're on, and you never know when that's going to come. So we have to be constantly putting ourselves out there.
I love that level of optimism, because that is also where I reside, of one moment could change your life forever.
Yeah, and I mean, we're constantly changing. Like a big part of this life is evolution and change and trying to like become a better person, because if you're the same person you were 5 years ago, then what's the point that we're like, what are we doing here? You know what I mean? So it's like the more that you get comfortable with being uncomfortable, putting yourself out there in situations that maybe you wouldn't have been comfortable with before, that's how you open new doors. That's how you step into new realities and change the path that you're going on, by purely just doing the thing. Doing the thing gets a lot more results than sitting there and planning the thing and trying to be perfect at the thing. You get perfect by simply doing it. But a lot of us like have that fear and that, you know, thing stopping us from actually doing the thing. But like that's really all you need to do is like get out there and put yourself out there.
Yes, I always say action is the antidote to anxiety.
Yeah.
So once you take action on that thing you've been so scared of, you'll be so shocked of. Now I'm sure the next person you interview, a lot of the nerves that came along with it will be dissipated, because you're going to think, oh, I did that before.
Yeah, absolutely. And that I saw that as like when you DM me, I was like, this is a great opportunity. For the first time, I have to like make out a script because there's somebody that I've never met coming on the podcast. I have to like put myself out there to kind of interview and ask questions and to lead a little bit, which I've never done before. And, you know, with this new growth mindset, I think I approach more situations like that, where rather than being like scared that you were coming on the show, I'm like, this is the next step. Like, this is like the universe giving me a little taste of what the future will be like, and like allowing me to get some practice in. And it's just cool to see that. And when you like really accept it and you see those moments for what they are, it's not scary anymore. It's exciting.
Yes, I love that mindset shift of turning it from scary to I'm excited.
Yeah.
That nervous feeling, I'm excited. That's what that is. That's all. I'm just excited.
Yeah. All right. Well, it's 111. I was about to end the podcast, and it's 111. There we go,
New
guys. But yeah, I'm gonna wrap it up there. Is there anything else you'd like to say?
Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed it, and I can't wait to see what amazing things you do.
Thank you so much. It was amazing to have you on the show, and I'm literally so honored to have you as like one of my first guests here, and it just worked out so perfectly. I couldn't be more grateful for you. Literally, you're from New York. I can't believe that we're in the same room right now. It's crazy.
You know, I love the universe and how it always is looking out for us.
Well, I'm going to wrap that episode here. Love you guys. RD2H Road to Happiness. Follow me on Instagram, X, TikTok, Lemonade, YouTube. It's all at RD2H Podcast. And thank you again, Emily, for joining us today. It was an amazing discussion with you. I'll see you guys next week on another episode of RD2H. Love you guys. Bye.